Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with another Distress Ink Smooshing set of cards because I've been really enjoying it lately. I have this 5x7 full front shaker die wafer die set from Picket Studios. I'd used the actual frame shaker die portion on a previous video, which I will link at the end of this video if you haven't seen it. But in the center of that wafer die is all these greenery pieces, and I've had it sitting here because I've had ideas, as always. And with all the ink smooshing lately, I was looking at these wafer dies and I was like, oh yes, perfect. So that's what I did. I die cut just a bunch, over and over again, using those wafer dies from distress watercolor paper. And then in my head, I kind of planned it. I was like, I want to do 3 different little color combos. So I just grabbed some of the die cuts. I stuck them to my little stick and stamp mat just to hold these in place. And then I'm going to do my ink smooshing. Now, you could totally just ink smush pieces of watercolor paper, etc., and then die cut them after. The only reason I have really been liking die cutting first is I can see where the color is going. That's pretty much it. I don't know. I'm really enjoying I die cut, and then either I'm doing ink smooshing or ink blending or watercolor or, whatever it is. I don't know. There's something just fun about bringing these die cut pieces to life. So my first combo, I mixed it up a little bit. Instead of doing my typical Twisted Citron and Rustic Wilderness, I talked about this in a previous video. That is my go-to green combo. It's perfect. I mixed it up a little bit and I did Twisted Citron first. And then I added Evergreen BOUGH. And then I'm going to go in with Rustic Wilderness, of course. And I just use, when I'm doing ink smooshing, I use this little stamp storage sleeve because it gives me, again, more control. The standard type ink smooshing that we've always done in the past, you press your ink pads onto a non-stick craft sheet, etc., and then you just press your cardstock into it, and that's great, and that works wonderfully. I don't mind doing it like that, and it's kind of fun in a way because you never know what you're gonna get. But with this method, you have more control, so you can kind of see where it's going. I like this specifically for, again, die cuts. It's a lot harder to be flipping the die cuts over and trying to press them in, if you're doing it the opposite way, basically. So between sets of colors, I was rinsing off my stick and stamp mat. I just rinse it off with water, especially with distress inks. It just rinses off. It's good to go. You let it air dry. I didn't let it air dry long enough, so it wasn't as sticky. So then, of course, my little storage sleeve is picking up the die cuts. And you can see on screen, I have a second one sitting here, right in front of my face. And again, some days my own brain, I purposely pulled out more than one mat because I knew I was going to do a ton of die cuts. And then I sit and struggle because, that's just life, Anyway. Yeah, I rinsed off between colors only to prevent the little sleeve from picking up extra colors, although that can always be fun too. It's kind of fun sometimes when that sort of happens. But with this second set, a lot of times in between colors, because you want everything to dry. So you do your ink smooshing and you want that to dry, because if it's not dry the next time, if the next color you add, or if you want to add layers, because you don't even have to do different colors, you can just ink smush one color and just build up layers. But if it's not dry between the layers, everything is just going to meld into each other and you're not going to have that speckly textured look. It's just going to be kind of mush or solid, And the whole fun with this is I love that speckly, splattery, textured look. So you want each layer to be dry. And I use my heat tool quite often because I'm impatient. And the stick and stamp mats are not heat resistant, but I just kind of keep my heat tool moving. I don't put it on the fastest speed because there's 2 speeds on it, and I just move it quickly dry, you know, the layers. I'm good to go. If you concentrate the heat tool, or if you're like trying to heat emboss using a stick and stamp mat, it's gonna warp. That mat right, you know, in the upper corner that I just didn't use, it's warped because I wasn't paying attention when I was using it several months ago, and you know, the mat just it melted. So anyway, do as I say, not as I do. So with my second color combo, this was another fun one. I did salvaged patina, and then added some of that evergreen bough, and then peacock feathers. So just another fun combo. Evergreen bough is one of those colors that I overlook it all the time. I don't really reach for it, but then when I actually do, I'm reminded of what a pretty color it is. It is just a really pretty, like kind of greeny blue sort of a color. I love it. So I used it on the green combo and then this kind of turquoisey combo. And then my final combo, I did Dusty Concord. That's another one that I didn't reach for or don't normally reach for, and yet it is like the prettiest purple. Seriously. I think that's also why I've been pulling these out and doing this so often lately, because I'm like, ooh, yeah, I forgot I had this color. Like, I forgot about this color. And then it also reminds me, and I said this in a recent video too, I need to sit down and like re-ink all of my little Distress Ink minis, because other than like the brand new ones, like with the newest colors, I've had these for, I'm not even sure how many years. Whenever it was that Ranger first started releasing all the mini ink cubes is when I started getting them. So some of them are old and I use them a lot. So need to re-ink them. Anyway, add that to my list of things to do. So after Dusty Concord, I went in with Seedless Preserves. And Seedless Preserves is a much more warm purple. I would call Dusty Concord kind of a cool purple. And then Seedless Preserves is a warm purple. And then my final layer, I did Seedless Preserves and a bit of Prize Ribbon. And I did both of them together because I didn't want to use too much Prize Ribbon because it is a very, very intense blue. And I didn't want it to like overtake everything, but I wanted that bit of blue because again, purple and blue go together great. You know, if you are new to ink smooshing or are more uncomfortable with like mixing colors, stick to light colors, and or at the very least, just like I said, do just one color and do layers, and it'll be great. And then if you want to like start branching out, stick to light colors. So do you know, different shades of green or different shades of blue, different shades of purple, etc., etc. And then you can start experimenting and add colors that play well together. So blues and greens play well together. Blues and purples play well together. That sort of a thing. And experiment, you know? This is also why I save all my scraps, things like that. It's kind of fun sometimes. It's like, will these work together? Well, why not just slap them onto a scrap of cardstock and see what happens? So, try not to overthink it too much. Yeah, that is my constant mantra. I have been making cards for 20 years. You know, I've always been artsy and like to color and color theory and all those things. But even then, it's try not to overthink it. I literally have to remind myself of that every day. So there's my little life advice for the moment. Anywho, while I was saying all that, I had die cut all of those again, just from white cardstock, and I adhered them together. You don't have to do this, but it does give it a little bit extra dimension. And yeah, it just elevates it just a little bit. So I did that, and that took a little bit of time, but I was zoning out watching, you know, a movie or whatever and just adhering all my little die cuts together. And then for my card fronts, the panels, I ran white cardstock through my die cut machine with the against the grain cover plate die. So it just adds a kind of wood grain pattern to it, which I don't even know if it shows up on camera, but in real life, it's quite pretty. So I die cut 2 panels with that. And then I just adhered all of these ink smushed die cuts to these panels. And once they were all adhered, I just went around the edges with my scissors and trimmed off all the pieces hanging off the edge. And I ended up using a lot of little pieces along the edges just to kind of fill in spots here and there. So I repeated the process on the second card front. And then, of course, I'm going to add splatter. Like, of course. Anyway, I'm using my gold Gonzai Tombi little well here. I don't even keep it with the whole little set. It's a set of, is it 6? Because I just use this one so much. And heavily splattered this all over the background. I added water to it, swirled it up really well, like let it sit, swirled it up. And then I used my fan brush and heavily splattered this over these backgrounds because it just kind of was like the finishing touch. And then while that splatter was drying, I die cut black cardstock using the Slimline Oversized Hello word die. And as always, like I'll have links to everything in the description box below the video. But I die cut this multiple times from black cardstock and then stacked 3 of them together because, again, it just gives it dimension. And yeah, especially when the focus of the cards are just die cuts. You know, I'm not doing any stamping. I'm not adding any other embellishment, anything. Like the literal focus is the die cuts. For me, it's worth taking the little bit of extra time to, you know, layer them, stack them, etc. Because it gives it that extra something. So I'd stacked 3 layers together for the sentiments and then adhered them onto my die cut backgrounds. And I used my little T-square ruler to make sure this was straight, because especially a sentiment like this that's got like the swirly bits and everything, with my astigmatism in my eyes, I'm just like, is it straight? So T-square ruler for the win. Set those aside. Oh, and those great big acrylic blocks. I just got those. I finally got one of my recent orders. These are by Hero Arts. I'll have a link to it. They're enormous. They are like 6-inch by like almost 5-inch acrylic blocks. Love. I got a couple of them because they're just going to come in handy. With all the die cutting I do and adhering, I was like, it's just perfect. So anyway, like I said, links will be below. On the insides of the cards, I had a couple more die cuts left over, which was perfect. So I adhered those to the inside, and I had stamped a sentiment from it's a little Animal Crackers set by Picket, and I stamped the little sentiment with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, adhered the die cut off the excess that was hanging over the edge, let everything dry, and then adhered these card front panels to the card base. These are A2 size cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and that finished them off. So yeah, these were fun. I hope you guys enjoyed. I've really been enjoying this like ink smushing and just slowly branching out into more color combos, you know, and not just doing the same ones that I always do. So like I mentioned earlier, I'll have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have a link to my supply list and everything I used. I'll have a link to that other video I mentioned here at the end if you are interested or missed any of that. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't. I'd very much appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!